every American citizen must have an equal right to vote.
The administration of elections is primarily a state and local responsibility.
Whether you voted for the very first time or waited in line for a very long time, by the way, we have to fix that.
Welcome to High Turnout, Wide Margins. This is Brianna Lennon. I'm the County Clerk of Boone County, Missouri, and with me is my co-host,
Eric Fay, Director of Elections in St. Louis County, Missouri.
And today we're really excited to talk to Bill Werngren. He is the Director of the Elections Committee for Gothenburg, Sweden, and he's going to be talking to us about how elections are run in Sweden. And first, we always ask, how did you first get interested and involved in elections in the first place?
Well, I started working in polling stations. Actually, I've been serving my city now for a little bit more than 40 years. And when I was young, I started working in polling station, and I think I had done that for like 5 times or something. And at the same time, I worked at the City Hall office in Gothenburg, which is basically where I have been all the time. And one of the directors at the City Hall office, that's the City Hall in Sweden. It maybe works a little bit different, but that is sort of the office of the executive committee. And the executive committee in a city like Gothenburg, they are politicians, and they have a whole lot of civil servants that are serving them. So anyway, one of the directors at the City Hall office told me that the job as the director for the election committee was available, and it was kind of reserved for me. So, and that's how it started, basically. So I've been the director of the election committee in the city of Gothenburg for 20 years now, yeah. And I just, a couple of months ago, I resigned. But that was planned, so it's not that because I'm retiring after the next election, the next major election here in Sweden, which is next fall in September 2022. The person who is sort of taking my job after me, that was also planned. So everything sort of worked out as we planned. The woman who is taking the director job after me has been working together with me since 2006. She's a bit younger than me. I've been involved internationally. We did a thing. I was actually invited as a speaker to a conference that then IACRAT and now IGO had in 2008. In Scottsdale, Arizona, I think it was. And I was invited as a speaker because when we had the general elections here in Sweden, 2006, we did a thing that was quite unique in the world, actually. We let all the kids in the city between the ages of 5 and 12 vote. They were voting on how a streetcar should be painted. So they got 3 alternatives. So one was a ghost tram, if they wanted it painted as a ghost tram, and one was a jungle tram, and the third one was a space tram. So we gave them ballot papers that looked exactly the same, in the same size as the adults use when they are voting. But instead of a party name, there was a painted tram on the ballot paper. 14,000 kids voted. So it was a major success. And we even did voting booths for them. So we sort of, we have voting booths for adults, so we just scale them down so they fit kids. It was a great, people were actually calling from all over the world because we did an international press release about it. I mean, there were papers from Australia and a guy from the Central Election Authority in Nepal called me. So anyway, I was invited to talk about this at the iAccurate conference in 2008. And since then, I've been a member in sort of a kind of an international committee. I've been in several places here in Europe during elections also, of course.
Can you kind of give an overview of how the election infrastructure is in Sweden? Is it all centralized? Do you get authority at the city level to be able to do things, or how does it all work?
Yeah, we have a central, sort of a central election authority which cover the whole country. But in Sweden, we have also 297 communities. We call them kommun in Sweden, but that could be a big city or a more rural area. And they all have a sort of a local parliament. They have to have an election committee by default. The Central Election Committee that covers the whole of Sweden, they set up some rules and stuff, but it's basically the local election authorities that sort of conduct the elections, that operate it as a whole. We get a lot of stuff like ballot papers and things from the Central Election Authority, but we have to arrange everything. And we decide where to put polling places. You can vote before the election day here in Sweden. And you don't need to have sort of a special reason for that, like in some parts of the US. You can just vote before the election day if you want to do that. And it's the local authorities that take care of that too. But it's centralized in a way that we sort of feed an electronic system with information about all of the communities. They have to sort of feed this electronic system with information about where the polling stations are and that kind of stuff. And the Central Election Authority, they produce what we call a voting card, which is posted to every person who is liable to vote if he or she is 18 years on the election day. And it's all central. Swedes are very good at statistic and organizing things. So people are not afraid of being in a register in the same way as in US. But the system, I mean, the way you vote is totally, and the way we count the votes are totally manual. So we don't use any electronic stuff for the voting process as a voter. We do everything by hand. So every vote, let's say here in Gothenburg, we have on this upcoming election, we are going to have 410 voting districts. And every district consists of around 1,500, let's say 1,500 voters. And each of them have a designated place where to go on election day. And they have a paper register for that particular voting place. So when you come to your polling station, you pick the party you would like to vote for, put it in an envelope and leave it to the people behind the desk. And they mark you in the paper register. When the voting station is closed, they empty the box, open all the envelopes, count them, and call in the result. So it's manually, and everything is counted one more time by the state authority. So it's, I mean, people think of Sweden, and that's right as well. I mean, we are very much progressive in IT and everything. We have everything like that. We have probably most computer per capita in the world. But when it comes to election, we are still on Stone Age.
So I assume, Bill, you and your colleagues, all the election commissioners from the various communities across Sweden, I'm assuming there are conferences or meetings from time to time amongst those folks. I'm curious, what do you all talk about? What are your main challenges? What do you try to work out amongst yourselves?
We had a national conference by Teams this week, actually. The major problem here in Sweden with many of the problems that we have at polling stations and the station where you vote before the election day, they are related to the ballot papers, because there are so many of them. And it's really a problem. We produce ballot papers in the size of A6, you know what format. If you fold a A4 paper 2 more times, then you have the size of our ballot papers. And we produce 700 million of them. And we have like 7 million voters. If you want to vote for a party, you take one ballot paper with that particular party's name on it. We have basically 9 political parties for the moment that counts, and they have seats in the parliaments. But we also have hundreds of other parties that don't reach up to the 4% that you have to have of the votes to get a seat in the parliament. So it's really a mess, and it's a complicated system. And because of when you come into a polling place, you basically can have like a wall of ballot papers in front of you. And many people, it's so many of them, so it's sort of hard to find the one that you want to vote for. That's the main problem. That's what we talk about. Change in the Swedish system is very robust. So it's very hard because we don't use any electronic equipments and stuff. So it's hard to sort of cheat with that system that we have for the moment. And people are used to it in a way, and the political parties, it takes so long time to change anything because the politicians are afraid or whatever it is to change it. Another big problem is that you can actually change your mind in the Swedish system. If you go to a library and vote a week before election day, you can actually go to your polling stations on election day and tell them that you want your vote back, and then you can vote again. So you can regret what you have. That means that it works like this. If you vote in Stockholm and your polling station is in Gothenburg, your vote is sort of posted to your original voting station. That's because that's where the register is. That's how we mark that you have been voted. But the polling station on election day, they are not allowed to put your vote in before 8 o'clock. So it's still there in an envelope until 8 o'clock. So that means that you can go to the polling station and get your vote back, and that's a huge problem.
Do you have to start over every time trying to like recruit them, or is it something that they all know so they reserve time?
No, we have around 3,000 polling workers on election day. Around 75% of them stay to the next election. Normally we have elections here every 5th and every 4th year. We vote for the European Parliament every 5th year, and for the Swedish general elections every 4th year. We have this thing, it's also discussed a lot, because we vote on both the Swedish Parliament and on the region level and on a municipality level on the same day. So that means we have to have ballot papers for all of these different elections. So polling workers, yeah, basically we have to recruit around 25–30% of them every election.
And just out of curiosity, Bill, how much do you pay the workers at your polling stations?
I think if you are the chair we have a chair in every polling station, and we have a vice chair, and the chair is paid around $400 for 1 day. How much do you pay?
Not nearly that much.
Really?
I think most American election officials would have much less trouble recruiting workers if they paid $400 a day.
I thought you paid more, actually.
No, well, at least in our case in St. Louis, depending on how much training the workers attend prior to the election, it can get up to about $200, but that's about the maximum.
I think we pay, if you're new, we pay something like 250. And if you're a vice chair in the polling station, it's something like 350 and 400 for the chair.
And are you responsible for training these workers prior to the election?
Yeah.
How much training do they receive?
It's around 2 to 3 hours. And we try to organize it so there is always trying to get a mix of new ones and people who have been serving before at every location.
The locations that you use, do you get cooperation from them pretty easily, or do you have to pay them to use their space?
We mostly use schools and different kinds of buildings that are owned by the city, and we don't pay anything for them. That's about, let's say that's about 70 to 80% of all the location we use. But sometimes we have to rent sort of a private building, or then we need to pay them. And if they are owned by the universities in Sweden are sort of owned by the state, and they are pretty expensive. Yeah, I think we have one that we pay for on election day close to $5,000 last year. University of Commerce and Economics, and I think we paid some, and we could place, it's a huge building, so we could place like 6 districts in the same building.
So Bill, people in your position who are, and what's your title again?
Before I was the director of the election committee, and now I'm just a senior advisor.
Okay. People in your position across Sweden, they're, like you said, appointed by the municipal council of sorts. Do you serve in a nonpartisan basis? Are you allowed to be involved in party politics?
No. I'm totally neutral. So I'm not appointed by a party or anything like that. I have a board which consists of members from all the parties that have seats in the municipal parliament. And they consider us as very strict neutral. We have to treat every party the same, and we are very strict. I tell my board, because after every election, I get sort of new people in the board, and I tell them, just because of the trust thing, I haven't voted myself for 20 years, which is the first thing I tell my board. I just don't care about politics, at least not publicly. It's very strict, and you are not allowed to wear pins, with party symbols when you work in the polling station either. And I think that the voters are we have a quite amount of trust among the voters for the system itself.
It's interesting you bring up the subject of trust, because what I wanted to ask you about next, as you mentioned, you have been very active in IACRIAT and now IGO, the International Association of Government Officials, which is based in the United States, and a lot of American election officials are members of that organization. So you attend these conferences, and you're well acquainted with kind of what's been going on in American election administration since the 2020 election. And I'm curious, from your vantage point as a Swedish election official, how do you feel about some of the things you've been seeing in American elections, especially after the national election last year?
Well, I've met so many local election officials in my career, and I don't have any doubt when it comes to the election system that you have, which can differ from state to state. And I don't have any doubt about the people who are sort of conducting the elections and all the polling workers that are out there. I mean, the discussion about the elections, I mean, that was sort of, and the discussion about the results, that was a result of the social media and lies, and didn't have anything to do with the election system as it is. Social media and media overall are playing a huge role in sort of the perception that people get of the election system, and it affects the trust that they have in the system. And I think that, I mean, there was so many strange and stupid things being said, and that is one of the things that we are going to be much more aware of. And there was a lot of discussion on that seminar that you led in New York as well. And it's very important, being in a position like mine, to sort of scan the internet, what's going on, what kind of rumors is it out there, what can I do as an election official to sort of take care of these false rumors. And that's what I think. So I don't think, maybe in America, but I actually don't think that people here in Sweden, generally speaking, have a lower trust in the election system. And that's mainly because all the rumors came from a source that isn't very much liked up here, so to speak.
I'd like to know if there's anything from your now whole career of experience in Sweden, observing European elections. You've observed American elections. You know a lot of American election officials. If Bill Werngren had the magic wand to kind of do something with elections, is there anything now from your experience that you'd like to see happen, or you wish that people would know about elections?
Education of the polling workers is essential, I think, and sort of make them aware of what they are actually doing, and explain for them that you're actually a part of taking care of our democracy. That is one thing that I wish that we could sort of get out to the people who are, many of those people are so, of the polling workers, they are so dedicated in the work that are doing, but not everyone is. And I think that's the most important, to get people to understand how important their work, even if just heading out envelopes or every simple task in the polling station, is very important to the whole process. And through knowledge and professional behavior in the polling station, we get that trust that we need for the system itself. We have a long tradition here in Sweden, so you can actually, when the polling station is closed, they have to open the door when the counting starts. So people are allowed to sort of watch the counting in every polling station. So an open system, which I think, I mean, Sweden is such a small country, to see people when they are actually counting all these ballot papers, and to watch it, which is hard to do when you deal with an electronic thing. We can, if we say a party has got 57 votes, we can actually hold up 57 polling papers here they are, an open, transparent system and a professional behavior from polling workers that are well educated. That's a few keys for you guys.
As we mentioned before, you've been involved in IGO for a number of years. You know, it's interesting that a European election official would be so involved in an organization like that, but you keep coming back. What value as a Swedish election official, as a European election official, do you get from participating in that organization?
Well, Eric, let me tell you one thing. There is always something to learn. I haven't been on one conference with IACROT or IGO where I've always got something to bring back home. And I hope some of you guys have got something from me. I think that the international sort of cooperation in election issues and among election nerds, which we are, is very, very important to benchmark and doing that kind of stuff. And it's very important for the trust that we know how other countries are doing this, or other counties or municipalities or cities. It's very important. You always learn something, always something that was a really good idea. I mean, I remember one time we were in Orange County in California. They are marvelous. I mean, they are so good at what they are doing, so professional. And they started a student academy for young people who want to become election workers. That was a really good idea, just to mention one of hundreds.
I mean, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. You have a lot of election workers for each election and things like that. Over the years, how have you found people to work with you? How did you find the person that is going to be taking over for you? Do most people start as election workers and then kind of do they start in a different field of government and then decide they want to work in elections?
The people, because we have had on the election office, we have had sort of a generation shift, because the three of us who were the heads of the organization, we pretty much are retiring, not the same year, but almost. So we have three new people, and they have been involved with us for a couple of years now. And they are, I mean, elections is so important. And I mean, if you work in the city of Gothenburg, this is probably one of the best jobs that you can have. And that's what I'm telling my board, because I mean, to arrange the election is a task for every city or municipality, but that is sort of the foundation of the whole city. If we didn't have democratic elections, it's over, in a way. It's the finest job that you can have as a public service official. And that's what I've been telling my people for many years. Probably could be one reason why they stay. And they are well paid as well.
All right, everybody, that was another episode of High Turnout, Wide Margins. A huge thanks to Bill Werngren for joining us from Sweden and for sharing his perspective with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you listen next time to High Turnout, Wide Margins.